Hello and welcome back to the Bookshelf Odyssey. My name is Art and we're celebrating 1,000 subscribers today. So I'm doing a Q&A and I have about 14 different people or channels that have asked me some questions. So I thought about what order to answer these in, and I thought I could get them all arranged, in different topical type things, but that just seemed like too much work. So we're going to just take them in the order in which they were given. In my last video, I briefly mentioned what it meant to me and how much it meant to me reaching 1,000 subscribers. And as I mentioned there, I'll mention again, when I first started, I just thought 1,000 would be a number that, it's a goal. It not and not to say that anyone with under 1,000 subscribers isn't a real booktube channel or anything like that. I think it's more about the activeness of the followers more than even just the number of followers. Even before I hit 500, I know I had a very active comments section and got to chat with a lot of you on different apps and things. And so that's just been one of the greatest joys of this whole journey. I do truly thank you all for commenting, and I try to get to everyone's comments. I know I haven't, and as the numbers increase, I'm sure it'll be harder for that. But one of my goals is to keep this channel very much a community where we know each other, a safe place to chat, to share your shocking book opinions, like Jane Eyre could have done better than Rochester, things like that. I won't attack you for that. As long as you don't attack me for that either. All that to say, welcome if you are new. Some of my plans going forward, I think I'll deal with that first, is I want to continue to do Distracted by Dickens episodes, maybe one a month. I'm not going to commit to something just yet, but I would like to try to do at least one a month. I really enjoyed that, and I've heard from several of you that you enjoyed that. Also, I'd like to continue to look at underrated Victorian writers. Again, maybe one a month or so. It definitely won't be weekly like it was over Victober. I'll probably increase those during Victober time next year, but I'll sprinkle that throughout the next year as well. And I would like to do more read along, like group buddy reads kind of thing, like a book club almost. Well, I mean, exactly what what it would be is like a book club. And I'm really hoping going forward to try to focus a little more on the classics that I so enjoy and love reading, but also to do some of the wrap ups and book reviews and things typical in a booktube video. So I guess some of the real changes coming would be like a book club, and then a couple of series I want to do ongoing, including looking back again at Ray Bradbury and trying to bring up some more videos about him and some of his books, because I think he's an author we all need to be reading these days. All right, that's just some of my future plans, and let's get to the questions. This was so fun to read what's been on your mind and what questions you have for me. So the first is from Adrian4028. She said, I so very much enjoyed when you read Great Expectations as I followed along in my copy of the novel. And that's one thing I want to do more of. And in fact, she said, would love it if you read another Dickens. Coffee is my favorite beverage. Also, good. We have the most excellent of followers. My question for you is, what is your favorite comfort dinner and dessert? So I love that question. We're starting off with hard questions. My favorite dinner is probably, I would have said like Italian when I was younger, like, spaghetti or lasagna, things like that, basic. But my wife makes the most excellent chicken taquitos. And I've had them at restaurants and they're just terrible. But the way she makes them, how she makes them, they are fantastic. And over like the last few years, I don't know, 5 years or so, I've really love Mexican food. Now, I might have to clarify. It's the Mexican food you can get in America at like a Mexican restaurant. Not Taco Bell, but an actual authentic Mexican restaurant. That's probably still pretty Americanized. I expect if I actually went to Mexico and had their food, it would be very different. Those chicken taquitos my wife makes, excellent comfort dinner. And for dessert, nothing beats a soft, gooey, frosted cinnamon roll. You get the cinnamon roll with a fresh cup of coffee, and it is bliss. Um, the best dessert. And I have been known to have cinnamon rolls for dinner sometimes. So, yeah, love it. And then another Georgina 3358 says, "Congratulations! I'm very new to your channel, so you might have covered this question already. But do you have a preferred genre of literature? If so, what is it, and why?" Yeah, I love this question. So, I know Victorian literature is not a genre, um, but I love that period, and I think for me it's like the right mix of writing, like the beauty of writing and the depth of writing mixed with compelling plots and characters, with some history, because I do enjoy history, so there's some of that in it as well, along with the a lot of times lessons that you might get taught in a Victorian novel. But as far as actual genres go, um, some of my favorites are mystery and science fiction. As much as I do love like Victorian literature, like modern general fiction usually doesn't appeal to me unless there's a very interesting hook. The Reading List by Sarah Nisha Adams was excellent. So I do love books, like stories that are about readers or about books. Um, but mysteries for me go way back. When I was a kid, some of the first chapter books I read were the Hardy Boys, and so there's a lot of nostalgia with that. I think you can cover a lot of ground in books like both mysteries and science fiction, where you can still do some of what the straight like fiction books do. Explore the human condition, make comments about society, about injustices. It also helps make it a good story, and that's just the way my tastes run. But science fiction, I love just just the imagination behind creating worlds like it does. And then I got some questions from MJ from Reading This Life. She has been such a fan of my channel, just helping to get the word out about my channel and everything, and definitely one of several people who have been instrumental in me getting to 1,000 subs. So much thanks to MJ. She says, "My question is, what book or genre has surprised you the most in terms of enjoyment since being on BookTube and being exposed to so many subgenres? Also, what is a BookTube event that you are looking forward to?" So really fun questions here. I mean, it probably would have to be the just general fiction, which were books I tended to avoid, thinking they were boring. Everything from Victorian lit that just follows, or even like Jane Austen, stories that follow family drama, or marriage plots, things like that, that there is great enjoyment in reading those. and being exposed to so many subgenres. Like even in fantasy, there's your typical, you know, high fantasy. You've got your urban fantasy. You've got your cozy fantasy. I just heard a new one recently called the Fantasy of Manners. But yeah, so many subgenres that one of my fears, even 10 years ago, was that I had read all Victorian literature worth reading, which basically only covered Dickens. And maybe there were a couple others outside of Dickens that I had read. And boy, happily have I been wrong. Even now, 10 years later, I can't say that I've read all that there is worth reading. As I start doing that underrated series, so many more are coming to my attention. If there's one thing that BookTube has helped me is it's given me the desire to not just say a book isn't for me without at least trying it. Now, I firmly believe in DNFing, but I've become more broad in my willingness to try. And I think I've actually gotten pretty good at knowing fairly quickly whether or not a book was going to be for me or not. And then what BookTube event are you looking forward to? Well, I'm definitely hoping to do more. But the ones I'm looking forward to, there's Jess from Dickens and Docs on Instagram. She does Dickens in December. I only came across that just about a year or two ago, and I haven't really had much time to do it. But this year I'm jumping full in. We'll be reading along with her Instagram channel and all the different stories they have picked out there. Of course, there's Victober. It's probably the biggest, most exciting one of all of them. I also look forward to Jane Austen July. And then Garbagest is one I've been participating in just within the last couple of years, but I've really enjoyed doing that and just celebrating literature in all of its forms, whether you get the highbrow stuff like with Victober, or you get the really zany, what society calls, you know, the trashy literature that comes in, you know, in all of its forms. Now, I typically, the way my taste runs, I don't like to read a lot of smut and things like that, which I'm not here to criticize that at all. You know, it's just my taste. But I have found some books that I've really enjoyed through that. Also, just I can still read Victorian literature, even in Garbagest when I read A Penny Dreadful. In fact, I found a book just a little while ago at a library sale that I'm going to read for Garbagest, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. You have to wait until August. So yeah, those are the big events that I typically do and look forward to. But this year I'm hoping to be involved in more. There's a new December reading event called Ghosts of Christmas Past. But yeah, I'm looking forward to trying out more challenges that maybe I haven't in the past, just to continue to try out new things in my reading. All right, my next question comes from Elizabeth Brink, and she says some nice things. She asks, what are your favorite adaptations of classics? Also, is there another time period you love to read about outside the Victorian era? All right, favorite adaptations. Oh boy. I'm going to go back to Emma by Jane Austen. I love pretty much every version or every adaptation of that I've seen. The Gwyneth Paltrow, Jeremy Northam version, I think from 95. There was a miniseries maybe a couple years after that. I think the girl's name was, the actress's was Romola. That was really good. Clueless, of course, just perfection. Oh, Emma Approved, the web series on YouTube, fantastic and excellent. Mr. Knightley in that series as well. The 2020 Emma was excellent. I just love that story. So those are all good. other adaptations that I've really enjoyed, we have Little Dorrit by Dickens, but the BBC starring Claire Foy and Matthew McDreamy. No, that's good. Um, the Keira Knightley Pride and Prejudice, excellent. Let's see what else. The Netflix Persuasion is fantastic. Okay, sorry. No, no, I was just kidding about that. I couldn't even say that with a straight face. That was a disaster. Anyway, but yeah, those are the ones that I've really enjoyed, and it might be worth thinking about what to me makes for a good adaptation, because I'm not necessarily concerned about accuracy to the novel. Oh, how could I forget with that in mind? The Lord of the Rings movies are perfection from beginning to end. The extended director's edition, 110%, no notes, perfection, and I will die on that hill. And that might be, also the greatest film of all time. Okay, so going back to my original thought, it might be interesting to sit down and think what for me makes for a good adaptation, because as I said, I'm not necessarily concerned with the adaptation staying strictly to the story, because if I want the story, I'll just read the book. So I don't mind adaptations changing things and making it fit, the format of a TV show or a movie better. That's fine within reason. But yeah, really good question. And then, is there a time period you love to read about outside the Victorian era? I didn't realize there was a time period outside of the Victorian era. That's new to me. No, I'm sure there is. Like when I read mystery set in modern times. That's an era, right? um, but probably not. Maybe some of the Jane Austen era is at the Regency era. That probably would be my second favorite time to read about. But yeah, the Victorian era just really has my heart right now. So, what are you gonna do? All right, next question. Daryl from Fellowship of the Folios, and he's a relative new booktuber, so make sure you check out his channel. He might not post a lot, but when he does, it's worth watching, and he does a lot of classics and Victorian stuff, as well as shares a lot of what he's reading in like different religious devotionals and things. It's always very, very thoughtful. His question is, what Victorian work surprised you the most in terms of either defying low expectations or exceeding already high expectations? Really fun question. For me, it might have been the Brontes. And I want to say I probably had low expectations going in. I had read Jane Eyre. It was great. It was fun. I did that in a book club. And the discussion around it was just excellent. And I thought, boy, between Charlotte wrote other books. I mean, we don't talk about them much, at least in general. We do on BookTube because, we've dug deep. But outside of BookTube, people just don't talk much more about any of Charlotte's other books. And I hadn't even heard of Anne Bronte. I couldn't remember even who she was half the time until, again, I got into watching Victober videos and BookTube and all that. And then, I thought maybe Charlotte's book, I'd heard of Wuthering Heights a lot and figured it was some popular work. I'd get around to it. So going into these books, I had low expectations, especially with like Charlotte's. By the time I got to Anne, that opinion had changed. But yeah, her writing all across is just great. And then I guess you could say I probably went into Wuthering Heights with high expectations, and that was maybe that's not quite what I wanted it to be or thought it was. That's, you've heard me rant about that before. I would also say like I went into like Jude the Obscure with high expectations because I have loved what I've read of Thomas Hardy up to that point, and that book is so dysfunctional. so at times just so straight up awful. I certainly didn't enjoy it. Now I did not throw the book across the room when I finished it, but I also haven't read any of Thomas Hardy since. So maybe that book broke me. I don't know. Other books that have surprised me. I got to talk about Dickens again. The few I had read of his, I loved so much, and I knew going into his others, thinking, will this meet my expectations of my great expectations of some of his other books? And happy to say, like, every Dickens I've read is just so good, and such a joy to read. Okay, and then I got one from Teacup the Storyteller, and she's got a great booktube channel as well. I know I've done a buddy read with her once, and her question is similar to a previous one, which is, do you have a favorite book and its adaptation combo? So yeah, very similar. The Gwyneth Paltrow Emma version, Little Dorrit, the BBC series. But I like how, I think what she's emphasizing there, a favorite book with its adaptation, and that's a really good distinction, because there are some adaptations movies that I love that I think this might be scandalous, but I think they are better than the book, or at least I enjoy them more than the book. Lord of the Rings, that movie might be in that category. Don't unsubscribe. I'm sorry. But I like fantasy more when it's visual, and I don't know why, but I would rather watch the Lord of the Rings movies than read the books. I don't know what that says. Maybe I'm broken. I know my sister thinks so, but I don't listen to her anymore anyway. For me, those two are, going back to the books, Emma in that version of Emma, and then Little Dorrit in that BBC miniseries, for me are like two excellent books that have excellent adaptations. So not to rehash everything I just said, but excellent question. Jessica Thompson writes in, congratulations. My question is a hard one. What is your favorite book and your favorite sub genre of books? Now, Jessica Thompson is an author. I've had her on my podcast many times. She's a great supporter of my podcast, and I love her writing. She writes cozy mysteries. A great writer. My favorite book is maybe not that hard to choose. I would probably say my favorite book of all time would have to be A Christmas Carol, or A Tale of Two Cities, or The Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury, or Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. Um, hmm. Great Expectations is pretty good. So yeah, if I could only pick one, that it would be those five, counting as one. Hey, it's my channel. I make my own rules. My favorite sub genre of books. Well, yeah, like getting down into the nitty gritty stuff. I have found I really like cozy fantasy. The book that, like, The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, I think it's called. Those books are great, and some have called them like cozy science fiction. I think I just like cozy books, guys. So that's fun. I love a good ghost story. So maybe that counts as a sub genre. But yeah, when we start breaking down into the divided subgenres, that's probably where I would pick. But if I got real specific, I would say like a cozy mystery set at Christmas time that features like a bakery or coffee shop, and maybe a little bit of Christmas magic, like just a touch of Christmas magic. That's that would be catnip for me. That's perfect. Another question comes from Lauren reads, and they have two questions for me. One, are there any Victorian authors you have completed in full or working towards? And two, do you have a favorite 19th century American writer or book? Yes, fun questions. I have completed mostly. There's some odds and ends I haven't yet to finish up. But if you look at novels, I've completed the Brontes, Dickens, and Elizabeth Gaskell. This coming year, I'm going to be finishing up George Eliot, most likely. And I am working on a bunch of others right now. I know Trollope is one. I want to read more of Margaret Oliphant, Wilkie Collins, and there's some others as well. I'm really excited to get to the last two George Eliot books because I've been reading her probably just as long as I've been reading Dickens, but I haven't ever finished, and she hasn't written that many compared to some, but yeah, I just figure it's time to get caught up with her before she publishes anymore. It could happen, you don't know. And then a favorite 19th century American writer or book, I would see, yeah, the one that comes immediately to mind is Herman Melville, although of his work I've only read Bartleby the Scribe and Moby Dick, and I've loved both of them. Moby Dick I've read many times. Yeah, it's one of my favorite 19th century American novels. It's excellent, and I know it's not for everybody, but I love it. It's great story. And I'll be honest, a lot of times when I reread, I do skip chapters in that book, that the chapters that talk about like whaling and give biology lessons and all that kind of are oddly placed. Sometimes I read them, sometimes I don't. I might skip, and I'm okay with that. You should be too. But yeah, I don't know what he did in that story is just so enjoyable. There's definitely some 19th century American writers that I haven't read yet. So maybe when I retire, I'll explore more. Spread Book Joy, another excellent channel. She asked, I've been fascinated with the idea of personal bookish pilgrimages lately. So my question would be, what would be your ultimate bookish destination to visit? Or it may be that you've already visited. Either way, where would you go and what would you want to see, do, and read while there? Okay, so this is where I'm going to need somebody very rich to help finance me for this trip. But I mean, you could probably already guess what it is. I want to go to England. I want to go see all the places where Dickens lived and wrote and walked, and just follow in his footsteps. I would want to see the Dickens Museum. I would want to see other sites that they have, the buildings and locations that inspired some of his novels. And since I'm already over there, I might as well go see the Jane Austen Museum, the Bronte Parsonage, the Gaskell Museum, anything else I can find. I just want to see where my favorite writers lived and worked and wrote. Maybe that's why I need to find more American writers to follow because I'm not going to be able to get to England anytime soon unless somebody very rich gives me a very sizable donation on Ko-fi or on buymeacoffee.com. See links in the show notes. All right, booking with Deborah. She just says some really nice things about the channel. So Deborah, thank you so much. And she says, my question is, are you planning to host Gask April again? And she wants to join in next year. So I'm going to say yes. I have plans. I already have an idea of what we're going to read that month. It always seemed like Gask April, I had bigger plans than I was able to accomplish for Gask April. And I think I've got a method that's going to work. And that's basically where we read a work of Gaskell in the month of April. It's kind of a little sampling of what Victober could be all about. But I think this year we're going to be reading some of her novellas, including The Gray Woman, which is one of my favorites. And I haven't reread that recently. It's been a couple years, so I want to go back to that and revisit that. And I believe there's a couple of novellas I haven't read yet. I want to make sure I get caught up on all of her smaller and shorter writing. So that's the plan. It'll basically be just like a community group read. And I'll hopefully post some videos talking about what we're reading. And I think that's an easy approach for me to deal with in April. But yeah, definitely we're going to be doing Gask April again. And that's the plan, is to read some of her short fiction this year. I don't know how to pronounce this one, but Evipsara 7151. Sorry, I butchered your name. They ask, what biography of Dickens is your favorite, and which one do you believe represents him more truthfully? So I did talk about that in a Distracted by Dickens video, sort of. But I would say again, just to recap, the Michael Slater biography, as well as the Peter Ackroyd biography. I think those two are the best. They each have their own fresh approach to Dickens. And honestly, I feel like they both represent him truthfully. They don't shy away from the more difficult sides of his character. I want to say that Michael Slater tries to at least offer some explanations for it, to try to understand his character in context, in historical context, and even what could be happening with him biologically, different things like that. But I would be hard pressed to say which one I think portrays him more truthfully. I think both do an excellent job of that, warts and all. I've also heard the book of Claire Tomlin. I think it's called The Invisible Woman, and she might have also written a biography of Dickens. I think she makes at least some claims there that are pretty far-fetched. Again, I haven't read them yet. Just, so take that for what it's worth. That maybe he's portrayed a little more poorly than maybe he actually was. The thing that's hard is that we're separated by a couple hundred years. Dickens was very careful about controlling his narrative, and it's just hard to know for sure. I don't know if that answers your question, but if you want something, I think, truthful and that handles research very well, both Peter Ackroyd and Michael Slater's biographies are just superior. I honestly couldn't decide between the two. If I had to pick one, I'd pick Michael Slater, just because his is more recent, would have more recent scholarship included in it. And I think he does an excellent job of not just exploring Dickens's life and his work, but looking at the quality of the information that we have and the evidence that we have. So yeah, maybe by a hair. Next is from Coffee Cups and Books. Her question is, if you can only read 5 books for the rest of your life, which you can reread, what would they be? Why are these so hard questions? Okay, definitely. This might actually be my desert island picks, to be honest. But definitely A Christmas Carol and A Tale of Two Cities. Let's see. I'd want Fahrenheit 451, and then a massive collection of Ray Bradbury short stories. I've got several that contain like 100 of them in each. So I'd pick one of those. And then I should pick a mystery. This is a hard question. I would probably pick Emma by Jane Austen. Yeah, there we go. How could I forget her? Whew. But yeah, that's an impossible question, and I don't appreciate it. All right. Next, Katie Lumsden from Books and Things wrote in. She said, a question for you. I know that Dickens and Ray Bradbury are 2 of your favorite authors, but who would be your top 5? So Dickens, Bradbury. Another tricky question. I would say George Eliot and Elizabeth Gaskell. And number 5 is hard. But maybe going more modern, I would pick Louise Penny, who writes the Three Pines mystery series. I'm kind of been seeped in Victorian literature lately, so those are the only authors coming to mind. But I'm trying to think more modern. Definitely Louise Penny, because hers are the books I buy as soon as a new one comes out. I don't even question. Even if I have to dip into the food fund for the week, her new book going on my shelf. So I think that would definitely qualify as a favorite writer. Yeah, don't hold my feet to the fire on that one. But right now, that's my working top five, I think. And then last but not least, Planet Hamlet wrote in to say they're a new viewer, but so how did you? Oh, great questions here though. How did you become a bookworm, and what was your reading like as a child? What is it about Dickens that you love, and are there any other authors who come close to Dickens for you? Do you have any ongoing reading projects you'd like to tell us about? That might need to be its whole separate video to answer these. But okay, we've got time. So, all right. How did I become a bookworm, and what was reading like as a child? I remember I used to be very shy, and I was very shy about reading out loud. Part of that was because of my voice. I had a speech impediment, and I did struggle a little bit with stuttering, not a whole lot, not as bad as some, but I remember having speech therapy when I was in kindergarten, and I was just embarrassed by it. And I remember finally getting over that. And honestly, years later, it, the fact that I get on BookTube and talk, and on my Christmas podcast where I read Christmas stories out loud, these are things I would not have been comfortable with 40 years ago. So I'm really proud of that growth, to be honest. But I loved reading. And as I mentioned, some of my first books, chapter books I read were Hardy Boys, which gave me a love for mysteries. But I found a lot of, and just a difficult childhood and life as a teenager. It was very difficult. And I found a lot of relief in safety and reading and being at the library. There were librarians there always happy to see me as I checked out stacks of books. They would offer, suggestions and would chat about what I'm reading. It was just fantastic. The library was a huge, huge part of helping me manage through some difficult experiences as a youth. That just grew into my love for the books I love today. Like, as I got older and began to, learn who Dickens was and wanted to read, finally read A Christmas Carol for the first time, the book, and not just watch different versions of it, which led to other works by Dickens, which led to other Victorian writers like George Eliot was one of the first non-Dickens books I read was Silas Marner. Loved that story. So that part grew over the years. And then what is it about Dickens that you love? And that's a good question. I I love his characters, and I love the melodrama in his plots. I don't know, but his characters are funny. The way he writes, it's just like a work of art. And I'm fascinated by him as a person, his complexity, his wide extremes from being very, very good to at times being very, very bad. Um, you know, he's just such a complex person. Plus, getting to meet a descendant of his through Gerald Dickens, I've been able to meet him a few times and gave an interview with him on my Christmas podcast. It's like seeing history come to life, which I think also helped fuel that interest. Are there any writers who come close to Dickens for me? I would say Ray Bradbury does come close. He he's one I've read since a teenager, and just inspired me to face each day with joy, with with passion, with that fervor and excitement that he did. And then ongoing reading projects you'd like to know about. I have shared some already. Again, just quickly, I want to finish reading all of George Eliot's books. I'm going to continue to reread some of my favorite classics, and hopefully make some videos about that. I'm hoping to do a book club where we read some of my favorite classics. But yeah, other reading projects offhand, I can't say anything more beyond what I've already mentioned. But make sure you're subscribed to my channel, because when that happens, I'll be sure to share about it online. But I suppose the major reading project I'm undergoing right now are reading all of the novels of some of my favorite Victorian writers, like Trollope and Oliphant and Wilkie Collins and George Eliot and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right, that's the Q&A. This is probably going to be a pretty long video, but I really enjoyed that. And like I said, 1,000 subs, that's worth celebrating. So let's say we do this again when I hit 2,000. And maybe that'll be quicker. Maybe it'll be longer. Who knows? Who cares? But I've really enjoyed the 3+ years I've been on BookTube, and look forward to many more. So thanks for coming along with me on this journey. Make sure you like and subscribe and all that stuff. And let me know in the comments if how you would have answered some of these questions. Well, we'll keep discussion going there. So, all right, with that, I'll wrap up. But as always, I hope you are doing well. Happy reading, everyone, and take care. And thank you for subscribing.